Hey, Discernment listeners, Love is Blind, Season 4, Wedding Day. Let's watch.
This whole time I've wanted to feel shown and told, that you loved me and that you wanted to be with me. I never, felt safe. And I think that this, moment just kind of shows that that's validated.
It looks more and more genuine. She says she always wanted to feel safe. I don't think she means in the sense of intimate partner violence. I think she means safe in the sense of within the safe security of a secure attachment where someone is totally dedicated and loyal and wants to be with you. And she saying she never really felt that, which we could imagine. Paul isn't very expressive. And also, we could imagine him being pretty honest with her if he was not necessarily a yes yet. And so she's crying right now. So yeah, this looks more and more legit. And I want to say again that the statement she said earlier of I was waiting for you to like me, I was trying to get you to love me, could be completely just taken at face value and has nothing to do with some sort of personality issue. I just want to be clear about that.
I never felt safe. And I think that this moment just kind of shows that that's validated.
And I will commend Paul and Micah for being very mature on the stand. Think about last season with Zeneb and this sort of thing. There's a lot of things that you could say on the altar in this moment, and I don't know, maybe it'll happen, but there's a lot of vindictiveness or anger or, I don't know, being conflictual, using the stage as a way to, get back at someone. And we're not seeing that from either of them. We didn't hear Paul say, that thing you did to me, that's why I can't commit. And we're not hearing her say, well, I hated you, or I can't believe you're doing this to me, this is so typical, or whatever. There's just a lot of different things. They are giving each other benefit of the doubt. They're being mature and differentiated in this moment. So it's good to see.
I think I want it to be known that, what's right.
So that could be one of two things, or both, that she is being angry and vindictive and saying, screw you, or she's overwhelmed with emotion and she just wants to get off the stage because she was about to say yes, but she's like, but I need to know what he's going to say before I say yes myself. And she's really hurt and she's decompensating, she's melting down, and she's just like, I held it together for a few minutes there, and so I'm going to cut my losses. I'm out of here. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe it'll be indicated somehow.
I want it to be known that,
Another factor might be that Micah knows that Paul talks a lot and is very wordy and is predicting that and thinking, I don't want to hear it. He's just going to say a lot of his scientisty kind of words, and so I'll just now. If she were in that mode, I imagine she'd be, Paul, this is great and I appreciate it, but I'm gonna go now.
What's right for me is right for both of us.
So I wasn't actually paying attention to what he said until this watch. He's saying, I want it to be known that what's right for me is right for both of us. Hard to know what he means by that. I'm interpreting it as him saying that since I don't want to be with you, then you shouldn't want to be with me. But there's a lot of other ways of phrasing that, right? And also, why would you say this at that moment? Well, to answer that question, I wonder if he's saying it because he feels guilty, he feels bad, and he's trying to justify. He's just like, I just want you to know that, of course, you might be angry at me, but if I don't want to be with you, then you probably shouldn't. We shouldn't get married, right? You agree with that. But like I said, I don't think it's time to say something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, if this is legit, this is so both weddings so far have been a surprise to me. I thought Kwame's going to say no. I thought Chelsea might say no. And I thought Micah would say no, and maybe Paul would say yes. And certainly I didn't think that we'd see evidence that Micah actually is invested in this. I don't know, it really just throws everything off for me. And maybe they do that on purpose. They, one, edit the show so that there's some big reveals in the final episode, or the cast members are instructed, or maybe they're trying to toy around with things. I don't know. But it is. Were you surprised when you saw this?
Relieved. Honestly, that's how I wanted it to go.
And the fact that she's laughing, fine, you're relieved. You didn't want them to get married. Okay. Do you have to say it out loud in this moment? Do you have to laugh? Does she always laugh when she's uncomfortable? I didn't react to this, but when Micah was walking down the aisle, she was having uncontrollable giggles, which is, I think, normal. I think it's, the nervous energy of, oh my God. And it also was as a tick in the column of when she and perhaps her friends are uncomfortable, they will transmute their emotions into laughter because it's a safer emotion to express than terror or hurt.
God. I don't want you in here. Like, I want to deal with this on my own. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, this looks more and more real. It'd be hard to act this well. I don't know if I've just become jaded or I'm completely just making stuff up in my mind, but yeah, okay. So I have to kind of reorient my heart, honestly, and mind, that Micah, it doesn't erase what Micah did in the pods, in the pool, at Chelsea's party. That's all still present. People are complicated. And at the same time, I feel bad for her. She was just dumped. This reminds me of Giannina and whatever the fella's name was. It has a similar look to it. She bolted as well. She ended up in kind of a mud bog at some point. But for Micah, she just went back inside. And Paul, I think, is doing the right thing by coming to her and hopefully apologizing and having some compassion. It's perfectly within her right, Micah, to say, I can't deal with you right now. Go away. I want my mom. So let's see what happens.
Please. Like, I don't want you here. It's too hurtful. It feels awful.
I know.
I can't do it.
And it's not because I don't love you.
I can't believe I'm crying about this couple. Yeah. It's good that Paul did this, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he should go away. And, I'll tell people to do this. It's like, fine, you want to help, and you see someone suffering, and you feel bad, and you feel like maybe you can help if you're Paul. But if someone's asking you to go, you probably should go. You can talk about it later on. At the very least, there should be a line where maybe you really make sure, and then if the Micahs of the world hold fast to say, no, I need you to go. Like, don't impose yourself on someone else's life like that. So I don't know, the body language, it's hard to know if she's appreciating this. It looks like maybe, but yeah. I from his wording, I thought he was saying let's date, but it almost sounds like he's saying we're done, which wouldn't be uncommon for the show. And if so, then, so far, this is a pretty good handling of the breakup by Paul and by her. She's being vulnerable and expressing that. She's not screaming at him or anything. I don't think that calls for it, but he is expressing, I often say this to people, and I think it myself when I'm trying to navigate situations like this. I talk a lot on this channel about communication and about expressing your feelings accurately and in a compassionate way. But sometimes all the words in the world cannot communicate what you can communicate with a compassionate hug. So I'll tell clients this. It's like, even in the middle of a session, I'll be like, would you like your partner to hug you? Right? Would that help? And I will recommend people in moments like this, like if you're you can think about this for yourself. If you're ever in a conflict, if you can manage it and you want to, and it's consensual, is in the middle of it, just say, hey, can we just take like 2 minutes during this conflict? Could we just hug for about 15 seconds? I think that will help, and I feel like I need that. That can be all the communication that you need, and it regulates things. Blood pressure goes down, cortisol goes down, attachment goes up, oxytocin goes up, usually. Sometimes you don't need to even continue the conversation. The conflict is put into perspective once you regulate and once you feel each other's affection. So physical affection, that is a very important thing, obviously. And so Paul honored that. He's not being wordy, he's being physically affectionate. And I'm guessing that for her, this helps a little bit.
I feel so awful.
Do you hate me right now?
Yeah, it'd be hard to fake that. It looks real. Looks like she's genuinely surprised and hurt. Or she suspected, but she hoped for something different. And yeah.
Did I make the wrong choice?
So that was interesting. He's saying, did I make the wrong choice? And that'll happen. You'll decide you want to break up with someone, you break up with them, and then there's some tenderness there, or you see how much someone loves you and cares. Maybe that's what's happening. And then he's like, whoa, maybe I did the wrong thing. Or you just are a little wishy-washy in the moment. Yeah, that's normal.
I love you so much.
Maybe you should leave
It's a little bit crazy.
right now.
Okay, good. So he's like, all right, if I stay now, it's a little ridiculous. And plus, her support system is there.
I feel really like broken.
So usually when I hear that word, of course we don't know what she means by it precisely, but usually when I hear that word, I think someone often will think that about themselves. It's not an isolated word that they use for themselves, and often people use it in that context where you're very demoralized and sad and heading down a spiral. That word is often referring to when people believe that there's something flawed fundamentally about them, defective fundamentally, unlovable fundamentally. Again, everyone on the show contains multitudes, many facets. Micah, we've seen a fair amount of data around the facets, and it just makes me wonder if it all ties together, that whatever she was referring to regarding broken motivates a lot of the things that we saw, both good and bad, on the show. I don't know.
I feel really like broken. I feel like, I don't know, I literally feel like a disaster.
Yeah. Being dumped at the altar, that's pretty rough. She could easily say that she was going to say no to, because she didn't say yes or no. She could easily just defend herself in an inauthentic way and say, well, I was going to say no to, I just didn't know. I didn't want to say it first, and if I just wanted to give him a chance or something. There's a lot of things she could do, but she's just laying it all out there.
I don't know, I just really don't want to be here.
Yeah, when they say things like this, like that, the cast members, like, I just want to go home. Because I think when and other cast members, when they're in that state and they say things like that, I don't want to be here. I think it's them telling the producers, like, could we just not do this right now? Could we not? I'm at possibly the worst moment of my life, or one of the worst, and can we just? I can't hold it together. I just want to get a pint of ice cream and sit in front of the television and have a drink, or I don't know, with my friends. I don't want to have to stand here in all this outfit and hair and makeup and act like I'm not a mess. I just want to be a mess, and I don't want it to be on camera. The first season, I remember there was that one couple, Kelly and I can't remember the other person's name, but the guy was rejected, and I think he thought that she was going to say yes. He goes downstairs and he says to the camera, just like, I don't want to do this right now. Could we just not do this? I don't know what to tell you. He's angry, and it lends itself to the truthfulness, the genuineness of the situation, right?
There was definitely love, like that's not a question, but it didn't seem to always be reciprocated. And I think, that could have been real, or it could have been a defense mechanism. Maybe she held back her love at times because she was afraid that I wouldn't reciprocate it.
Interesting. So that does shed some light maybe on what he said as he was hugging her and she's crying. He's like, maybe I made the wrong choice, because in that moment she was expressing a lot of pain and longing and upsetness that he said no, seemingly indicating that she really wanted to be with him, right? And so he's saying now that I think that he didn't really get much indication that she truly was deeply in love with him.
Could have been a defense mechanism. Maybe she held back her love at times because she was afraid that I wouldn't reciprocate it.
And you could see that, given his subduedness, at least on camera. You could imagine that if she was hesitant, that she would have a hard time finding overt reasons to believe that he was very much in love with her, right?
Because she was afraid that I wouldn't reciprocate it. And then it was just like this negative feedback loop. To tell her no destroyed me. Like, it definitely destroyed.
Okay, he says negative feedback loop. In terms of systemic language, I don't think he's using that term correctly, and he's a scientist, so I guess it's hard for me to know. Negative feedback loops tend to reinforce homeostasis or stability, and positive feedback loops are a term that we generally use for feedback loops that push the system out of alignment and into a morphogenesis or a new homeostasis. Anyway, and in family therapy, couple and family therapy, our primary foundation for looking at people and conceptualizing people and assessing relationships is through systems theory, which has to do with a lot of different systems, not just human systems and relationship systems, but also ecological systems and cellular systems and social movement systems, that kind of thing. But anyway, so he is saying a negative feedback loop, I think meaning that she wasn't very expressive, and so he wasn't very expressive, which made her even less expressive, which made him even less expressive. And then at the end of the process, they just weren't expressing, and they were assuming a lot of things. It almost sounds like he's saying, I didn't realize that she would be hurt. Doesn't it sound like that? It kind of sounds like he's surprised. He didn't know. He suspected maybe that she would just be like, oh, bummer, but whatever.
So yes, I struggled with, at least in terms of envisioning Micah as like, a mother. I think for me it was like difficult for me to do. It's just sort of just like a nurturing aspect, I think, that some people have.
Wait, what? I don't know if this is the time, Paul. This is kind of kicking her when she's down. So he's saying, I think he's essentially saying he can't see her as being a nurturing mother. And what I'll say to that is you cannot tell. It is really hard to tell. If you live long enough and you've had enough of these moments, then you know, and I have, where I will look at someone, and regardless of gender, I'll just be like, I cannot imagine you as a parent. In my 20s, for example, a lot of friends, I just be like, I can't imagine you, say, as a couple, they get pregnant. I just like, I just can't see you. Now, of course, for me, I would see a certain side of them. Also, people can have very loving parental sides to them, very nurturing sides to them, but you wouldn't have an opportunity to see that because they don't have kids around them, or they don't have their kid around them. And a lot of the time, what I will see is people will absolutely rise to the occasion and an inner nurturing individual or a hidden nurturing individual, or a part of them will just grow or something. There's a bit of evolution there, a bit of experience there. Certainly it's the case where sometimes it doesn't emerge. And sometimes people can look very nurturing, and then when they have kids, they're not. It's complicated. But he's concluding, and that was part of his, well, at least we're hearing that it was part of his decision-making process to not marry her, is that he wants to have kids, and he can't imagine her being a good mother. Which, I don't know, that's quite an accusation. It's hard to believe that he has enough data to go off of to say that.
You know, a mother, I think for me, it was like difficult for me to do. It's just sort of just like a nurturing aspect, I think, that some people have. I don't know, but whenever I tried, I just know that I wasn't able to see it very clearly.
Yeah, I think he shouldn't have said that. He should have just left it in terms of what had already been said. It was, I think, a pretty good breakup. He was kind. He said a couple questionable things when he was at the altar, but not anything horrible. And you've already broken up with her. You don't have to say everything, particularly to the cameras.
You said that you found like your person.
He said he's
So
in
what's
love with
different?
you.
Yeah.
Nobody dragged him into this place. That's annoying. Because you could have met somebody else.
Yeah, but that is assuming that somehow he knew he was going to say no from them for a long time, and he manipulated the situation to ruin Micah's life. You know, I don't think that that's true.
But no, he was in the way.
I don't know where to go from here. I hate that I'm still questioning it, you know.
It'll be all right.
It'll be all right.
You say so.
Okay, so he's saying he hates that he's still questioning it. Yeah, it's hard. People will come to me for therapy, individual therapy, and with this question: should I marry this person? Should I divorce this person? What do I do? And it's tough to answer that question. I've worked with people for years on that question. The marriage might be 20 years old. They were together for 20 years, and it takes a long time. You know, there's some obvious indicators that a relationship isn't so great. But even then, I've had people come in with stories about their partner that were, you know, pretty awful. And seemingly I'm like, well, this shouldn't take long for them to make a decision. But it's hard for them. And there's a lot of ins and outs of that, case-by-case basis. It's hard. And so it's normal to question. I think most people, at least in my cultural neck of the woods, people would say, look, if you're unsure, you probably should say no, because it's one of those things where it's a big deal and you should probably be all in on the decision. Now, I will say that it's not irrational or wrong or even unromantic to have a little bit of a question. It would be potentially rational, particularly if you're a scientist, to say like, well, most people who get married, the vast, vast majority of people get married, think that they're not going to get divorced. And yet 40-something%, I think about 40% of first marriages, people in their first marriage, they do get divorced. And 50% of all marriages, meaning whether it's a first, second, third, fourth marriage, end in divorce as well. So I bet you everyone who gets divorced thought that they weren't going to get divorced. And they're not all dumb people. They're not all irrational, chaotic individuals. You know, there are plenty of smart, very careful, decision-making sort of people who will get married and then it happens. We have this narrative in our culture that says otherwise sometimes. But anyway, so he's still kind of on the fence, apparently. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.